Thank you for tuning in to the Into the Classroom series produced by Mental Health California, sponsored by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative.
Welcome to Into the Classroom, which is a student mental health awareness multimedia series produced by Mental Health California. I'm your host, Conrad Crump, affectionately known as Coach Crump, and today's topic, it's not cool to bully. Now, bullying is a pervasive issue that affects millions of young people worldwide. It's a form of aggressive behavior that involves the repeated use of power to intentionally harm, intimidate, or control another person. Bullying can occur in various settings, including schools, neighborhoods, and even in online platforms. Bullying has far reaching consequences for both the victims and the perpetrators, impacting their mental, emotional, and physical well being. Today, we'll explore the damaging effects of student bullying other students, as well as the role of schools and strategies to stop bullying behaviors so our youth can thrive. Now, before we do, I'd like to introduce our clinician, Mr. Christian Jacobs. Now, Christian is a licensed marriage and family therapist and the leading Brother Be Well clinical advisor. Christian is a noted therapist who has expertise in substance use prevention as well, and his depth of knowledge benefits youth and their families throughout California. Welcome, Christian. How you doing?
Hey, Coach Crump, how's it going? Glad to be back again.
Yes, indeed. Glad to have you, and it's going well. I'd also like to introduce our youth guest for today. With us, we have Keyshawn Williams, who is a recent graduate of Sacramento State University. Welcome, Keyshawn.
How you doing, Coach? Good to see you as always.
Doing great. And I'd also like to introduce Joel Suazo from Los Angeles City College. How's it going, Joel?
I'm doing great.
Good. We also have with us Erica Pham from Miraloma High School. How are you, Erica?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, before we get into our discussion, I'd actually like to throw it over to Christian to see if he can give us some clinical insights into bullying behaviors and some of their devastating consequences. Christian?
First, I just want to, before I talk about the devastating behaviors and what bullying is, I just want to let folks know that it's not about you. Bullying is not about you. Most of the time, people think, what's wrong with me or what's going on with, who I am, how I look. It's not about you, and that's how bullying is set up. It makes it seem like it's more about I'm not dressing right or people don't like me, but it's really about the other person. It's really about the bully. It's really about their insecurity. So that's the first thing to really remember is whenever you see a bullying situation happening, it's not about you. It's about the other person and what they're lacking. And a lot of times too, most people bully because of insecurities, undealt with trauma. I'm sure we'll get into today, but it's a lot of the undealt, what I call it unfinished business. So a lot of things that happened in their past that they haven't resolved or haven't dealt with. And so you have a lot of those issues that fall into place. And then you're looking at, bullies, they really use their, they perceive weaker, bullies use others that they perceive weaker, mentally or physically, and it's called scapegoating. So they use a scapegoat. So they may have, a lot of pent up aggression or anger, or a lot of times anger against their parents or their family or things they've seen. And they're scapegoating, which means using another person to kind of let out all their problems and their insecurities. So if you don't remember anything else today, just remember that bullying is not about you, and people project, meaning they put on what their issues are onto other people. And that's the concept. And as a result of that, people will always talk about the outcomes or what happens to people who are being bullied, but a lot of things happen to the actual bully, which is, internalized anger that results in physical issues, a lot of thrill-seeking behavior because they're chasing that dopamine rush. So a lot of substance use risk and self-harming and possibly suicidal thoughts. So, these are a lot of the issues and things that can happen as a result. We're not even mentioning the social issues, right? So people kind of isolate you. Oh, they don't want to hang out with you because you're a bully, or they can see you as dangerous. And the most important thing is you don't know how that person's going to respond. So even though you're bullying them, as a result, you can have some other things coming back. You can have a big brother coming after you, or someone can respond violently as a result of you bullying someone. And so now you're talking about physical harm and physical danger. So those are just a few things that can happen as a result of being a bully.
Wow, that is a great overview. And I appreciate that feedback and that, if you don't remember anything else today, it's not about you. That is so true. So let's go ahead and turn it over to some of our youth. Just by a show of hands, anyone here, have you dealt with or know someone that is dealing with or has dealt with bullying in the past? I'll raise my hand in there. Yep. Okay, so it's clear that, I knew that I wouldn't be the only one, and it's clear that they're not the only ones. There's probably some folks in the audience as well who have experienced it as well. So let's go ahead and get into our presentation. So now at this age, we should all know by now, again, it's not cool to bully, right? So according to a study that was conducted by the National Center for Education Statistics, approximately 20% of students in the United States reported being bullied during the school year. Now, this translates into about 1 out of every 5 students who have experienced bullying. That same study revealed that cyberbullying affects about 15% of students as well. Let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. And let's look at the mental health aspects of bullying. So, victims of bullying can often experience feelings of fear, sadness, low self-esteem, and more. Research conducted by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, also known as the CDC, found that constant harassment and humiliation can lead to the development of anxiety disorders, depression, and even post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. The emotional distress can have long-lasting effects impacting a student's well-being and academic performance. In fact, they are more than twice as likely to contemplate suicide compared to their non-bullied peers. Now, let's look at some physical health concerns. A study was published in the Journal of Adolescent Health that revealed that the victims of bullying are more likely to engage in risky behaviors, such as substance abuse and self-harm. Victims may experience headaches, stomach aches, and sleep disturbances. Chronic stress resulting from bullying can weaken the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to illness. And the fear and anxiety associated with bullying can lead to a decrease in physical activity and an increased risk of obesity. So let's go ahead and move on to our next slide, and let's look at some of the reasons behind youth bullying. And I know Christian kind of got into this a little bit, but we see that children who witness aggression or violence at home may be more likely to replicate these behaviors in other settings, such as school. Some bullies may have underlying mental health conditions, such as conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder, which contribute to their aggressive behavior. So, Christian, I wanted to check back in with you and see if you can kind of elaborate a little bit more about some of those reasons behind youth bullying.
Well, first, the more opposite, this kind of talk about what opposition defiant is. It's really someone who has an issue with authority. So someone who has an issue with maybe law enforcement or teachers, any person who's in authority. So it could be this opposition defiant behavior. But in reality, you're looking at a situation where usually it's internalized issues that are occurring. So if someone has opposition defiant, disorder, that behavior, or they're constantly pushing back against authority or teachers, things that sort, naturally, sometimes they want to find a scapegoat or out, or like I said, about projection, right? looking for someone to kind of, well, since I can't get my way with the teacher, right, or my dad, or my mom, or my uncle, I'm going to try and get my way with someone who may be perceived weaker than me. So that's where that dynamic comes from. So when I kind of go back to, it's not about you. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at someone who, these conditions that occur, that may not be very favorable for them. And a lot of times it's usually someone, sometimes the person being bullied, usually in a lot of cases, it's not what you think it is. So sometimes the biggest person in the room or most intimidating person, they can be, especially with internet now, they can be a subject or a victim of being bullied, and you'll never know because it's sometimes behind the scenes, especially with the internet. So something else to remember, people you would never suspect could be a victim of bullying, and you can't go off of it based on their size or how they look or things of that sort.
Very, very true. Yeah, thanks for that feedback. And, as we look at this issue and look at some of the reasons behind youth bullying, kind of going into our next slide, we know that bullies often target others as a means of boosting their own self-esteem and exerting power and control over their peers, right? Also bullying can be influenced by social hierarchies, economic disparities, a whole host of other issues that might be going on behind the scenes, as well as the fact that students who feel marginalized or excluded may resort to bullying as a way to assert dominance. So those are just a couple of, the reasons why we see some of the youth that are bullying others. Now we can move on to our next slide, and let's talk about young people and cyberbullying. I wanted to kind of ask our young folks here, because we've got folks in high school as well as community college and university, and I'm curious to know, some of their experiences in terms of online. If I'm looking at Erica, because I know you're in high school. Can you maybe talk to us about maybe your experience with cyberbullying, or if you might have known or seen a situation and what that was like?
Yeah, I definitely feel like cyberbullying is definitely much more easier to be done towards like other people than like physically bullying, because it's so easy to just like pick up your phone, take a picture of somebody, type some text on it, like from you behind a screen, and then share it on social media, because you don't really like hear yourself saying any of the things, or you don't see yourself like actually doing that. And I think that it's definitely hurtful because people pick up their phones and they see it, or it's behind other people's back, so it's not like completely direct, but it kind of still has those same consequences. And I feel like now that our phones are with us at school, everywhere we go, I think it's much more like imminent and much more pressing as like an issue. And yeah, I just think cyberbullying is a little bit interesting, and it's just super crazy how people can just snap a picture really fast and just write whatever they want on it. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So true. Joel, jump in here a little bit. Talk to me about cyberbullying and, the impacts it can have on our young folks today.
Yeah, so for cyberbullying, I know it can be difficult at some instances. Some people might either send threats to you or talk about you, or saying that they're going to hurt you, you or your family. So people can definitely get anxiety or stress or feel like they can't go anywhere and start to isolate themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's real good. I mean, we know that these are examples that young people are experiencing online, sending threats or calling them names or commenting bad names under their posts, demeaning words. I've even heard of young folks who engage in creating fake social media accounts to even harass people even further. So it's like they're taking it a step further to continue harassing and to continue the bullying. So, it's true that, it definitely has devastating impacts. And I want to get you, Keyshawn, get in here a little bit and maybe talk about what are some of the effects of someone like who's being bullied themselves. Like, can you maybe talk to us about what a young person might feel, or some of those feelings that might come up for them as a result of cyberbullying?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I would say the problem is bigger than kind of just turning off the screen. I think a lot of people would tell a person, okay, just don't look at it. Well, if the whole school is looking at it, and the whole
Mhm.
school is talking about it, it doesn't matter whether or not you're engaging with it or not. You're still the subject of the bullying. So it goes beyond, you can't just turn off the screen. And I think the effect of it is, if you notice yourself going to school and feeling like you have to avoid certain people, or feeling like school isn't a safe place, that's just not a cool thing, period, really, because you
Mhm.
have to be at school, you have to be learning. We want it to be a safe environment for everybody. So if someone has to feel nervous about being themselves while stepping onto campus, that's just not a good thing at all. And I would say that someone saying something to you online is just as hurtful as something over the top, like an old school 80s movie of like getting shoved into a locker or something. Like, it can hurt just as much emotionally.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very good. Thanks a lot for that feedback from all of you, Keyshawn, Joel, and Erica. That was really good. It's true. The victims of cyberbullying are more likely to experience depression, right? They're more likely to experience anxiety and even suicidal ideation. So the relentless nature of online bullying can certainly lead to feelings of hopelessness, feelings of isolation, as these victims try to struggle to escape that virtual harassment, kind of like what you talked about. It's more than just being able to turn off your screen. There's a bunch of people, and it can be nationwide. Your video, whatever the situation might be, can go viral, and then now everyone's laughing and everyone's teasing you. So it can certainly create those feelings of just anxiety, depression, and all of the things that we talked about. So certainly a huge issue to raise awareness on. So let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. So when we talk about trying to address these issues, right, when it comes to the growing concern of cyberbullying, many jurisdictions and many educational institutions and districts, they've implemented policies and initiatives to curb online harassment and online bullying. These policies are aimed to create a safer online environment for young people and hold cyberbullies accountable for their actions. This also allows victims and witnesses an opportunity to report instances of online harassment, ensuring that appropriate action is taken. So let's move on to our next slide. So racial bullying. Now, racial bullying is bullying, but it's often really focused on a person's racialized or racial identity. Immigrant and minority students are particularly vulnerable to racial bullying as they may face discrimination and prejudice. This can lead to racial stress and trauma, negatively impacting their mental health and their overall well being. Additionally, racial hate crimes among youth can further exacerbate the issue and perpetuate a cycle of fear and hostility, as well as a feeling of looking down upon oneself. The way in which a young person might view their self, the way they might view their culture, what have you. These are all things that can really impact their mental health and mental well-being. So something to be aware of as well. So when we talk about schools, let's go on to our next slide, because the role of schools is important. So, schools should definitely create a safe and inclusive environment where students can feel supported and they can feel protected. This involves implementing comprehensive anti-bullying policies, providing education and awareness programs, and fostering a culture of respect and empathy. Schools should also have clear protocols for reporting and addressing incidents of bullying promptly and effectively. And I'm curious to know, I want to ask you, Keyshawn, over at Sac State, if a student were to be bullied, what might that student be able to do to seek help?
I would always say to talk to some faculty member, so some counselor, even a peer counselor that could help you and point you to the right direction. Just mention it to somebody, because you'd be surprised who would help you and who's willing to help and how much it can be done. And it might be as simple as, maybe you don't want someone else to get involved, but you could tell somebody else, and then they can give you tools to deal with it. And that way, you can help yourself deal with bullies and turn them away. So yeah, my main thing is always talk to somebody. You just talk to somebody about it. You have to share your experiences with people.
No, that's definitely good advice, man. Thanks for that. Let me ask you, Erica, a student at Mariloma High School, found out that they're being bullied online, or even harassed. What might that student do, or what resource is available for them?
Definitely counseling. There's therapists on campus. We have those. We also have counselors for every person has like there's 4 different counselors, so everybody can have like a specific counselor that is focused on them. And then I think another resource that's great is the admin at our school is really open to giving us opportunities to speak to them about any issues we're having with other people, and they take that stuff quite seriously. They take like harassment and stuff very seriously. You can get like mediation with the people that you're having trouble with, or there's also like different contracts and different forms you can sign and different things you can do to help deal with that, like face to face, and not just push it off and ignore it. So I think that's good.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Erica. And
Mhm.
Joel, talk to me here. What might a student at Los Angeles City College do if they were in this situation?
Yeah, just like Keyshawn and Erica said, we both have, therapists and counselors that can help you with something, or just bullying in general. I believe there's also a hotline that you can call to get, either information, whether how to deal with the situation or talk to authorities to help you with that situation. And also just speaking to someone, like Keyshawn said, there's multiple people that can help you on campus, whether that's with cyberbullying, physical bullying, or just threats in general. So as long as you reach out, someone will be there to help you.
No, very good. Thanks for that too, Joel. I appreciate you all just for kind of sharing, because I'm sure there may be someone in our audience today that may, find themselves in that similar situation and might need to know what to do moving forward. So I appreciate you all giving that feedback. Now let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. Now, in terms of reducing and stopping these bullying behaviors, providing comprehensive education on bullying is really key. Folks need to know about bullying, their consequences, as well as empathy building, and all of these of which can help to create a culture of respect and understanding. Encouraging students to intervene when they witness bullying can also be effective in preventing and stopping incidents. So let's move on to our next slide. Now, when we talk about implementing restorative justice approaches, having a restorative justice approach is key. And this can actually help bullies themselves understand the impact of their actions, and they can take responsibility for repairing the harm that they've caused. Schools should certainly foster a positive and inclusive atmosphere where students feel safe to report bullying and seek support from trusted adults, many of which our young folks have already recommended here today. Christian, I want to get you in here as well. Can you talk to us about restorative justice and how this approach might help bullies themselves understand their actions?
Yeah, I think the first thing you look at when you talk about restorative justice is you're trying to find a space to have these conversations, right? So you want to be able to create a brave space, right? A brave and safe space where you feel the person who's been bullied to come and talk, and also the person who's bullying has resources too. We tend to forget that the person who's bullying, needs some type of support as well. So you want to have separate spaces for both of them to work in, and also within that restorative justice, creating a good platform within the education system. So you want to ensure that the education system has first again the actual physical space to have this education outreach and campaigning. So ensuring that the school is campaigning, and setting clear policies on bullying. So first of all, they have a policy to fall back on in terms of whether it's reprimanding or things of that sort, or suspensions, however they do it, however they handle that policy. And then within that restorative justice, you have things you want to teach. You want to be intentional on the things you're teaching, like teaching assertiveness skills, teaching, 'cause most of the time, bullies are looking for someone who's perceived as being weak, either emotionally or physically. So you're looking to teach how can you teach assertive skills, building self-confidence, also learning how to advocate for yourself and speak up. A lot of times in those situations, someone who's being bullied, it takes them several months or sometimes years to speak up and say something. And also having a clear modeling program or a campaign program in terms of for parents. So how to model in the right way. So how are conflicts being handled at home? So having workshops talking about, handling conflicts at home, or what does the parent dynamic look like? Are parents yelling all the time, or are they battling all the time? And also learn the difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. That's another thing too, especially in high school, actually college too. A lot of students, they don't know the difference between what's being assertive or being aggressive. So that's a really important topic too to really talk about as restorative justice classes. And also teaching students to document, keep track of these things that are happening. If someone's bullying you, keep track of it, whether that's, mentally or with a pen or a pad, write down the dates and the times things happen. Because once you report it, they're going to ask, when did it happen? Where did it happen? Who was it? What they do? And you have all this written down. So really understanding those resources and peer support groups, having those spaces for support, education awareness, and involving the school authorities and law enforcement based on the nature of bullying is really important to really incorporate in those restorative justice classes and whatever you teach for that education of the school.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thanks a lot, Christian. I mean, you brought out a number of different, resources and thought patterns for folks to kind of consider if they find themselves in this situation. Certainly want to make sure you're documenting things, certainly want to make sure that you are getting in contact with the school administrative folks or counselors or even law enforcement if necessary. There are so many different situations that young folks find themselves in, and sometimes it can be hard. It can be hard to talk about, and that kind of brings me to my next slide. The role of the family. And Christian, you kind of touched on this, raising some awareness and providing resources for them, and also identifying what's happening at home. So when it comes to these topics, again, it can be hard for students to share that they themselves are being bullied. So I want to ask, one of our youth participants, Joel, let me ask you, why might a student not want to talk to their parents about being bullied at school? What might be a reason that they're, reluctant to talk to their parents?
Yeah, so I know sometimes, like even within your family, especially with men and boys, they tell you that you got to be strong. They tell you that either to fight with them or handle it on your own. That's I feel like that was a big thing. That was one of the things that was told to me to do. So I'm just providing that as an example. But
Me
you know,
too.
thankfully, like I never ever got bullied, but I did see a couple people that got bullied that were my friends, and I made sure to check up on them and be there for them when that happened. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks a lot for that. And I can recall on my situation just briefly, I was told to actually fight this person. I was told to, go, and I was taken by my father to this person who actually didn't want to fight me because he was scared that my dad was there, which, probably wasn't the best advice, but nevertheless, that's kind of what some of the times what kids are facing at home. But, when we talk about teaching and understanding, it's essential for parents to really listen to their children. It's essential for parents to validate their feelings, take their concerns seriously. And they should also communicate with school and collaborate with educators to develop a plan to address the bullying that's happening. Teaching youth resilience and assertiveness skills, kind of like what Christian was talking about earlier, those are things that can also empower them to respond effectively to bullying situations. So let's move on to our next slide. When we talk about therapy and therapeutic resources for youth who are bullied, counseling and therapy can help victims process their experiences, develop coping strategies, and rebuild their own self-esteem. Support groups and peer mentoring programs can also create a sense of belonging and provide a safe space for sharing experiences and receiving support from others who have gone through similar situations. So it's definitely a good idea to talk to your peers, talk to folks who might have gone through what you're currently going through. So now let's go ahead and move on to our next slide, because I want to talk about the flip side of the coin. This is discussing therapeutic resources for youth who actually bully. So counseling and therapy can certainly help bullies address their own underlying issues, right? Such as anger management problems or low self-esteem, or maybe there's something going on at home that we don't know about. So restorative justice programs, a lot of which Christian talked about earlier, can really focus on repairing that harm, can focus on promoting empathy, and also can be effective in helping bullies understand the consequences of their actions and help them develop healthier ways to relate to others. So, bullying is such a huge topic. Again, always remember, it's not about you, and it's not cool to bully. So I want to take this time to thank you, Keyshawn. Also, I'd like to thank you, Erica, and also thank you, Joel, for you all for providing such wonderful input. I also want to give a huge thank you to our clinician, Christian Jacobs, for bringing such a wonderful clinical analysis to the conversation. And I'd also like to give a huge thank you to you, our audience, for joining Into the Classroom, which is a production of Mental Health California. Please be sure to visit us at mentalhealthca.org. To access health and mental wellness topics for boys and men of color, please visit our signature initiative at brotherbewell.com. And while you're there, please be sure to subscribe to our blog. And I also want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor, Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative, which promotes access to mental health support. You can learn all about their program at bluesky.blueshieldca.com. I'm your host, Conrad Crump. And with that, until next time, take care of yourselves.